right, well, welcome back to the After Hours podcast. This is the second episode of 2024. Got some of the boys on this evening, and then as you can tell in the title, for the main discussion, we're going to be talking with Curt Geier from Working Class Bowhunter. But here on the front end, today is Friday, October 11th, that we are recording this, and we have a major cold front coming through the state here in a few days. And so we're just going to go through, talk to see where these guys have been, what they've been up to, and what they're going to be doing individually to take advantage of this very timely cold front. So whoever would like to start, please take it over from there.
Yeah. All right. Really just been getting used to the office, getting used to working over there with Ryan and Dave. I mean, it's been a really good time being in the same building with those guys and working together. Outside of that, I've been out twice so far, done some shifting of cameras and whatnot. But as far as actually being out in the stand twice, and really just been keying in on my permission farm, the hay farm. The alfalfa's in pretty good shape right now. They cut it a couple weeks before season started, so it's still fairly on the fresh side and everything. And they love that keying in on that food source there. There's standing corn all around it. I know a lot of you guys have talked about like bucks being kind of MIA because of the standing corn and stuff. I mean, I think that holds true, but also for that farm specifically, likes to make more deer stack up in there, which is cool. So seeing good deer numbers out there, had a good one that I'm not 100% sure who it is show up, and going to be hopefully getting after him on Sunday is the plan. So.
Would you say you saw a increase or uptick in those deer once the beans around you defoliated? Like, that's got to be the only green in the area.
To be honest with you, I didn't have cameras in by that time, so I couldn't tell you. But honestly, there's really not a whole lot of beans in this close vicinity. It's really like 360 surrounded by corn. I mean, it's kind of crazy. It like flip-flops. I know you and I, Josh, have talked about that. Just it completely changes year to year. So. Kind of interesting there, but
good corn year is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll see. It's an awesome farm. We'll see how it goes.
You gonna get an early Mustang?
It wouldn't be the worst idea for out there, and I don't exactly have late season food sources to hunt over, so we'll see. That might not be a bad idea.
All right. Well, not a bad update. You can keep up with what Gavin's talking about. The hay farm, the office, getting a little bit behind the scenes on the chase. That's a new series we're doing on YouTube over on the Midwest Whitetail YouTube channel. So from there, Caleb, I know you've got a lot to talk about. If guys have been watching your episodes, they're probably a little familiar, but a lot of ups and downs is probably the best way to explain it right now.
Gosh, a repeat of last year, boys. Started off the year, I wanted to do some doe management. We've seen a lot of August spawns this year, so I wanted to get on top of that and try and eliminate the second rut this year. Started hunting, shot a couple does on opening day. Then the second day started putting some cameras out on the work to permission farm. And I just started finding dead deer everywhere. So that kind of led to go check some ponds, and I want to say I checked 7 ponds, 5 of them had dead deer. Since then, we've checked 12 ponds, and 9 of them have had dead deer. Lost a couple targets. So my idea right now, I kind of still want to do late season just because I love bow hunting. But last year we had EHD real bad. It kind of got prolonged into November. And what I thought was happening, Drake, Justin, all you guys, I'm interested to see what you guys have to say about this, but what I thought was happening was some of these bucks that made it through that first round of EHD or through EHD, they had the disease, they got through it, but their bodies were worn down. Now, then they started chasing does like crazy straight into the rut. And that's when I started finding most of my deer dying. I think they went through that sickness. They started rut, not healthy whatsoever, ran their bodies down, and then I started finding tons and tons of bucks last year in the later part and mid part of November, just dead with blood coming out of their nose, out of their mouth. And talked to several DNR. They said that was EHD, and thinking, I mean, where I'm at now is, gosh, do I get an early muzzleloader tag if I had a target that was daylighting? Unfortunately, I don't have one. but it's something that I think about more and more as we get closer, I guess, to tomorrow. Iowa, I guess early muzzy season opens up, but it's been super slow on the cameras, which is not a surprise. That's how it was last year, but there's still deer around. Casey and I went out. We sat tonight. We had a couple bucks that were coming to this Red Greens plot, and we probably had 15, maybe 16 does come around. Well, it was 86 degrees tonight, and I thought I have to bring this Ozonics, and I can't tell you how many times I'm like, Casey, we're toast. Like, we had multiple does within 5 yards, and we had 4 does come right behind the blind, straight downwind. And I had that Ozonics just peeped outside. Dude, we never got blue at once tonight. And this blind, we just put this blind there probably 2 or 3 days ago. So I'm sold on it. And I don't think I'll ever be going to the tree or going hunting anymore without that Ozonics. That's for darn sure.
Yeah, the HR 600, man, that thing puts out.
Mm-hmm.
I found myself putting it above my head. We were hunting it off wind, and it was blowing right over me. And I had to move it because I started feeling a little loopy after a few minutes. And I was like, well, thing's pretty powerful. To answer your question, though, or just take a stab at, kind of what you're talking about there, I think you're 100% correct as far as that just the immunocompromised deer. They're going into the rut. They're already run themselves down. They're already off to a bad start. I think you and I talked about this a few days ago, but, I remember a few years ago when I was with Mark and he was talking about EHD, and I was like, oh, well, they made it. We're in good shape. He's like, nah, this is only the beginning, and the focus is definitely shift that year to, and I talked to those guys a little bit, and it sounds like some of their plans are where they're finding EHD to definitely key in on with the early muzz. And what I would say is, while everybody loves hunting late season, it's kind of like you just talked about, Gavin. Like, if you got a deer there now, even if he's in the area and he's not daylighting, I think we've got the perfect setup for the deer to daylight for the first time these next days. Looks like, if I'm not mistaken, Saturday night rolling into Sunday mornings when the front hits. It's going to roll through pretty much all day through Sunday. Winds will fall off. And so I would expect, based on looking ahead, Sunday be pretty solid, Monday be really good, and Tuesday probably has some, good hunts as well. But definitely a welcome change. I mean, it's in the 90s right now, and obviously that might be part of the reasons why the camera's so slow, not moving very far. But I would definitely say if you guys have the right buck just in the general area, I wouldn't wait for them to daylight, because I bet you it's going to happen. And that's why I was saying, Gavin, like, they daylighted on a pretty poor day. Well, what are they going to do on that big alfalfa field in a few days? So
Right.
That's really cool to hear about Casey's hunt. I think there's probably, minus Joy, there's probably nobody I'm rooting more for than Casey with the amount of work she's put in to get her first bow buck. I mean, it's been a lot of years coming, a lot of practice, and it's cool to hear you guys are making some time to get out there. She having a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, dude. She had a blast. I mean, we were soaked in sweat by the time we got in the blind. It was about a mile walk in there. But no, we were having fun, man. It's just fun seeing she helped me plan some of these plots. So it's fun sitting there tonight watching the deer. It's all the sound effects where they're just gnawing on these turnips. I'm sure everyone here knows exactly what I'm talking about. But that's my top goal this year. I'm really trying to get her a buck. She put a lot of time in herself last year, and I think it's going to come into tuition this year.
Sweet. I love it. Well, no better person than to jump to Justin. I know you've got similar plans this weekend.
Yeah, we're gonna get after it. So with my wife, we got 2 kids. The third one's gonna be here in March, and she works a full-time job still, so she's super busy, so she doesn't have a lot of time to get out. But we saw this cold front coming, and it happened to align that she doesn't have to work Monday or Tuesday of this week. And as I'm sitting here looking at the forecast, pressure starts rising tomorrow night, and it rises through Monday morning. We got a low of, looks like it's going to be 40 Monday morning and 30.3 on the pressure. So we figured that's a perfect situation to get out and give it a shot. We had a couple deer we're looking for. We got one 8-pointer that Drake and I actually encountered at 25 yards the other night. As I was on the ground, he was still in the tree. I think the deer, he's at least 6. He could be as old as 8 or 9 if it's a deer from the history. But just an old 10 that he came in and worked a scrape. So we're going to try to get after him. He's right on the edge of a hayfield, kind of like Gavin was saying. I wish it was alfalfa. It's more grass hay, but it sits right on the edge of a lot of good stuff. And there's a lot of food in the area. So if we get the right wind, that's something that we'll probably get in there and try. Otherwise, we've been bouncing around the public here for the last few days for sure, getting a bunch of cameras out. Both Drake and I have been putting the miles on. Just checking spots more than anything. A lot of this time of the year for us revolves around the crops. Like everybody was just saying, once that corn gets out, for one, the deer don't have a place to be anymore. So it forces them into these smaller areas of cover and all that jazz. And the other part of it, what I'm scouting for tonight, is a fresh cut cornfield. If we get fresh cut corn, plus this cold weather that we haven't seen all year coming, that could be a perfect storm to get one, on his feet, morning or evening. A lot of times we don't hunt October mornings, but Monday and Tuesday, we're probably going to give it a shot somewhere. Just the conditions are too good. But that's what we've been doing. Other than that, here at the home farm, both targets, which the bigger 10, I'm leaning more and more towards he's 4. So excited to see him on the hoof. He might get a pass, but the old 10, he's been on 3 or 4 different cameras, and the corn's just starting to get picked around here. And we just got our beans finished yesterday. So good lineup to have a hunt here potentially in the next week or so. But we're kind of just, with all this heat and everything, me and Drake have just been sitting on go. All our spots are pretty well set up. Cameras are in there, just kind of waiting on the deer and the conditions at this point.
Yeah, it's about the same with me. Like, this has been the slowest year camera wise for me that I've ever had, as far as like good mature deer. Like, we have like 2 or 3 on camera, and probably have 40 cameras, 50 cameras out, maybe.
Probably, for sure.
It's been rough, but I just had one deer daylight tonight, and big mature 6-year-old 9-pointer came out well in daylight, grunting at a doe. The farm actually got planted in beans really late in June, so they're still pretty green yet. And he was just out there milling around. I have a set on both sides of this cove that he comes out on. Of course, he walked right underneath one of the sets. So I don't know if I'll end up going after him Sunday or Monday or Tuesday, or if I'll take one of my buddies in there and try to get him on him. Outside of that, yeah, we're just waiting on crops. Big bean field just got picked on another property, and move some cuttybacks around on that, and kind of just playing the waiting game, man. So until the corn gets out, it's just it shakes so much stuff up, once the corn's out. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, well, I guess mine's kind of the same story. I mean, it's the 2 properties. You got the Big Bird Farm, where the drop time deer is from last year, the 6x5. I actually, after hearing what Caleb's been going through with the EHD finds, and I haven't had that deer on camera since September 14th. I went and walked the property with Rye, and then I'd walked one short walk a few days prior. Found 2 bucks dead, right in the creek, right, evident of EHD being the reason that they kind of were there, and ultimately never did find drop time 6x5, any of the other bucks that have, for lack of a better term, disappeared over the last week, and then drop time for the last month. 6x5's daylighted a few times the last few weeks, but the big change is that all of the corn everywhere around is all gone now. It's been all picked. All the beans are cut. So where I last got my last daylight photo of them, I think we're going to take a shot there Sunday night. Those high winds getting in, I think we can at least slip in and get a set that I'll leave up. I just haven't got in there to do it. And now that corn's cut, I think that'll allow us to get in a lot easier. Otherwise, it was going to be wafting through, 5-foot tall grass and just doing a lot of damage that isn't necessary. I was hoping to time it up with the farmer actually going in there. Our communication just kind of fell through, and he let us know when it was done. And I probably just didn't make it clear enough of like, hey, let me know when you're on your way. Because I was really hoping to be able to just go in right behind him, hang the stands, call it good, and then hunt that northwest wind. As far as the big deer goes, drove around there tonight. All of the beans are cut. And I think it was 4 days ago that he was 15 minutes after legal. Got a photo of him 2 nights ago. So I don't know. I mean, that's going to be kind of going to take a lot of luck. I have no real clue of where he's at. We're in such a small area with way more ideal cover basically on all sides of it. I'm just hoping that he's going to do what he did the other night on the northwest wind. I just do it a little bit earlier. So my hunting plan, because I'm going to try to go all in on this early front. I mean, if you look at the extended forecast, we really don't have a whole lot that's going to happen between this event and then going into the back half of October into the pre-rut. So, I mean, for me, it's hunt the deer while they're there. I think both of my properties are set up where, there's some does and there's some cover, but there's a lot better places to go. So while there's still hopefully some waste grain, my hunting plan is Sunday night, go do the hang and hunt on Big Bird. Monday morning, hunt Big Bird, both again. And then Monday evening, we'll take a shot on the big deer. So I don't know. I mean, I've been lucky to have big deer on camera. It's just a matter of, do they live there? Which I would venture to say is a no. But definitely an exciting weekend. And I would expect between this group and Owen, Mike, Zach, I know Rye, he'll probably be with Mike, but there's no better weekend for people to get out and make some magic happen, even though everybody I've talked to has said cameras have been pretty slow. So best of luck to all of you guys when you go. And obviously, Caleb, I know you guys are going to hit it hard this weekend, I'm sure, with Casey in town. So without further ado, I appreciate you guys' updates. As we said earlier, the chase, it's where you can keep up with everybody. And then obviously on the Monday shows where we'll bring kind of more lessons and updates from the guys that are not on that chase series. But appreciate you guys taking the time to listen. And now we are going to join Curt Geier and dive into what he's been up to and try to get a little bit more of an in-depth story of who Curt is and how he got to where he's at today. So hope you guys enjoy it. Good luck hunting this weekend. Let's jump to the conversation now. Well, hello, sir. As promised, let the folks know who the big secret guest was tonight. My great friend, Curt Geier.
What's up, dude? Thanks for inviting me on. I like the tables have turned on me from what our normal, we're doing a podcast situation with us is. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I certainly am. This isn't my role. I'm just here, and I figured, who would I want to talk to ahead of a big cold front? Who do I know it's on some big deer? And who would I be able to extract a conversation with that I don't think many people have heard when it comes to Curt Geier's story? So here we are. You also are probably one of the only people that I could call, hey, it's Friday. What are you doing tonight? Nothing? Just being a cool dad? All right, you want to hop on a podcast? What's up?
Yeah. Well, you and I talk all the time anyway, on the regular. And I'm sure people that follow Midwest Whitetail or WCB may I'm sure they know that if they follow closely. But yeah, man, first of all, I want to say I apologize that I'm not in the studio and I'm on my laptop and I'm at the home office and I'm listening to a baby monitor. And so this is not normal podcast attire for me or situation for me, but I'm dadding.
See, what's funny is that would be me if I was in the video world or a photo or something, but to you, to me, it's normal. I don't know. We don't have a studio, so I think it's absolutely normal, but obviously you take pride in everything you guys do at WCB. And, the podcast is how we met a few years back. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure people don't necessarily know how good of friends we've become. I would say you're definitely somebody that I've leaned on for a ton of hard conversations and advice how to handle different situations. And we can get to that because I think that that's kind of trending towards the discussion that I'd like to have. But building off of what me and the guy just got done talking about, we're sitting here October 11th, and I know you've had some good hunts so far, but looking ahead, and you're in Illinois, so the season sets up just a touch different. Everybody here is getting jazzed up about the early muzzleloader season that opens tomorrow morning. It's pairing perfect with a lot of this good weather, the rising moon, all the different factors that are going to make some good hunting. But over there in Illinois, you got any plans to take any shots? Is there any specific things you're keying on? Where are you at with that?
Yeah, man. I mean, we had some good weather opening weekend, had some good hunts. I probably had the best opening day I've ever had. I shot a coyote, seeing a good mature buck I'm hunting, passed a good buck, all on opening day. I'm like, this doesn't happen. Normally it takes me a little bit to calculate and kind of get into those positions, whatever. The coyote thing's a bonus, right? But then this week it's been hot. I pretty much what was the last day I hunted? I think I hunted a week Sunday afternoon, and I haven't really hunted since because of warmer weathers. But knowing, like looking in the forecast, looking at this cold front, I'm like, well, there's no point in going in. And like, if you're, I've been keeping tabs on trail cams and talking to buddies, and everyone's like, man, deer movement is getting later and later for these bucks. And I'm like, yeah, there's no need in going in the afternoon and then potentially like scaring your deer, spooking your deer that are just coming out as you're getting down type thing, or 15 minutes after dark. And we all know how that works this time of year, when it's warm weather, especially. So knowing that this cold front was coming, I'm like, I'm going to dad it up all week and just be present with the kids and chill and get some work done, because Sunday night and a Monday, Tuesday, and probably half the day Wednesday, it's go time with this weather. So I haven't really been stressed out because of this. Like, this is an opportunity in October, like the first major cold front in mid-October. That's like my favorite weekends to hunt now, after having more experience as a, I guess, successful bow hunter, whatever that means,
Yeah. I definitely think when you hit the word opportunity, it's definitely there. And if you look at the extended forecast before, let's just say the back half of October going into that pre-rut, there's really not another predicted window. Obviously, tough time of year for folks to take off on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, with work. And so for us, guys who, and this is again where I want to go with the conversation, but I think we all chose a career path for these exact opportunities, if that makes sense. I mean, like growing up, from my perspective, it was like always watching dad take a week vacation, and it kind of stemmed. I was like, man, that sounds like not the way I want to live my life. I want to be able to go hunt, went hunt, found a skill, got really lucky. And now here we are today, both hopefully going to be able to take advantage of that weather. I mean, obviously, you guys want to hear the deer hunting, go follow WCB, listen to everything they've talked about. They've done a lot of good podcasts recently. Hunting October, just listen to that one with Mark. That one was excellent and chock full of information. But one of the things that I guess I'm trying to segue here from is that not everybody is going to get the opportunity, or they probably won't take vacation days for a middle of October weather front. Totally understand that.
Yeah.
The rut puts people into a probably more even game, as far as an opportunity goes. And it's that chasing November mentality. There's a lot of aura about it, but you didn't just stumble into the opportunity to be like, hey, great cold front coming. I'm going to go hunt my property that I own, or a permission property that I have worked hard to acquire. Mm-hmm. And, we've talked about it briefly, but I really have never gotten the story of how Curt Geier, how WCB was created. And I think that there's probably an interesting twist for Doug or Eric or anybody that's been involved for a long time. But, as we're sitting here tonight, you're looking ahead of this cold front. Take me back to the beginning when you were the guy at John Deere who was hoping that, or wishing that he could go on those hunts. How and when did you feel like it was time to just do something different?
Okay, let me think here. So I've always been a fan of, obviously I've hunted since I was a kid. I've always been a fan of hunting media, monster bucks, Drury Outdoor. I mean, you name it. I have them all. I still have all the videos. I'm still a fan. I've been a fan of hunting media and entertainment. That's what motivated me as a 10-year-old kid to like want to hunt hard, when really, when you're a 10-year-old kid and you don't know how to find big deer, you don't know what you're hunting for, you're cold, you're miserable. My dad didn't really know what he was doing either. So like I could have easily just been unmotivated and quit then and had no passion for it. But hunting media like kept me into it. It kept that interest. I enjoyed it. And I had like good people that were around me. So I've always been interested in hunting media and the industry. And I've always been like inspired to try and figure out a way to be a part of it. And growing up, I just remember like, man, I love this so much. Like hunting means so much to me. Like it keeps me going. It honestly probably kept me out of trouble, because like, man, if I mess up here, then I can't hunt or do this, So I always had this mentality growing up that I'm never going to let anyone or anything tell me that I can't go hunting. And that probably caused turmoil for me for a long time early on in jobs and stuff like that. But I was never like, I worked overtime when I had to and stuff. But if it was hunting time, I'm gone. I don't care. And where other guys are like, give me shit about a deer I killed, man, you must have a good spot. I'm like, well, you were here working overtime and I left because I care about hunting more when I do this job. But I get the conflict there that guys have, and overtime's sweet. But anyway, I did some video stuff for like some YouTube internet type based shows, and it was just pretty corny at the time, but I'm glad I did it. Like, good learning experience. And then right about that time was when like mainstream podcasts were starting to really take off. Like Rogan was obviously had a name then, but that's when I started listening to Rogan when he was doing it in his house still. So I've been a fan of podcasts in general for a long time. Well, then I looked up hunting podcasts because obviously I was passionate about hunting, and there was a handful of them, but there wasn't any of them that related to me or motivated me to want to go hunting. And at the time I worked, I basically was a heavy equipment operator and a maintenance guy, and worked on conveyor belts and just random mechanics and whatever else. And I hated it and I was miserable. And that's when I was like, man, I'll start a podcast, Working Class Bow Hunter, WCB for short, WCB podcast. I'll try it. And basically that's, long story short, got going with that. Started firing off ideas in 2014, launched our first episode in March of 2015, March 2nd, 2015, I think was our first episode, and have not missed a week since then. So we just tackled it. So that's like how WCB got its footings. I don't know if that answers any part of your question at all, but that's how I maintained a fan of hunting media because it motivated me. And I also had the drive to like always go hunting and not let anybody tell me I couldn't go hunting.
Yeah. No, I think that answers a lot. I mean, I've gotten the quick version and a lot of different chapters of that story, obviously just talking to each other. But you hit on a really interesting point that I just don't feel like resonates maybe the same as today with hunting media and the folks that consume it, or at least the younger generation. Like when we were younger, and I honestly think, I don't know how old you are, but I'm 28.
I'm 34.
34. So relatively speaking, watch probably the same shows. I was right on that cusp where digital media came into the play. And that's where I fell in love with Midwest Whitetail. I had the VHS tapes, had the Monster Buck DVDs. We did not have Outdoor Channel. And so I was kind of just cut off from that segment of the media. But where I'm going with this is that media to me was never like unattainable or, this is not relatable. This doesn't apply to me. It was always like it fueled a dream. Like if I can't be doing this, I got to find a way to do it. And at that point, at 12 years old, I found Midwest Whitetail. I was like, I want to buy a farm and I want to hunt big deer on it. And so today, and maybe this is just the digital age where you got keyboards and people can talk a bunch of smack behind it and they don't actually have to follow up with what their opinions are, but it seems unpopular to be successful. I guess if it's unrelatable, people start running their mouths. And like, this isn't for me. And it's like, it's just interesting to hear your perspective. And I would argue it's very similar for me of how I guess just tried to bust through every wall and take advantage of every opportunity. So you set the stage, you start the podcast, you talk about how you're still doing it today, but what would you say, and this is, I just think, a very interesting question for folks. Maybe they're not doing a podcast. Maybe it's a job. Maybe it's school. Maybe it's hunting. What was the most adversity early on? Like, was there ever a moment that you had doubt in what you were doing? Did it ever not seem like you hit that wall of like, because there's always that like instant excitement on the front end of something new.
Yeah. So at the time, you got to think there was podcasts out, right? Like podcasts as mainstream, like Rogan, iTunes, that type of thing. You had the podcast app and nobody even knew what it was on their phone, even though it was already there. There was hunting podcasts, but there was nobody that at the time, especially in 2014, a lot changed in 2 years. From 14 to 16, a lot changed. But when I looked it up, I'm just like, I was 20, how old would I have been? 24? Yeah, 24, because we're going on our 10th year. So I was kind of a rowdy BMX kid. I grew up that way. Rowdy but respectful, if that makes sense. Like I just hearing the guys like, welcome to the podcast, da da da. Like that just didn't motivate me to do anything. You know, I like BMX videos where I used to watch, if there's any BMX guys listening, the video DK Intuition with Chris Doyle's trail section in North Carolina. If you know, you know that. I watched that and I'm like, I'm going to go ride my bike. And I would watch some hunting videos. Like I'd watch, you know, the archery tournaments in between the Monster Bucks hunts on their VHS and DVDs. That made me want to go shoot my bow, watching them guys, the long bomb elk targets over the lake. You know, like it made me want to go hunt. It made me want to shoot my bow. I love that. Well, in podcasting, I'm like, I saw kind of a void in a way. And, but at the time, we were so, even for non-traditional, because we cussed, we drank beer, we said whatever we wanted, and we always did that. And so a lot of people, I think, doubted it because they didn't even know what podcasting was, thought it was silly, which I totally get why they would think it. So I'd watch it go from everybody kind of laughing us off, didn't want to do the podcast, and then a matter of a few years, now all those companies are like, we got to have a podcast because everybody's got a podcast, and and all this. I don't know how to put it into words without sounding. I'm not resentful of it. I think it's funny, but a struggle. There was no future to like do it for a living or like do anything with it. There was no pavement to follow of like, oh man, so-and-so's done this in the hunting space. I'm going to kind of do what they did, but maybe a little different. Like so I didn't have that thought. Like I just knew we were having fun doing it and we were going to keep doing it. And it felt really awkward because we didn't have an audience at first. So it felt so conceited and just strange, you know, but like no one had done it that I was aware of. I'm sure someone had done it successfully, but not on our radar. So I didn't even have it in my head that like we got T-Bone on in the first 20 episodes and I was like, dude, we've done it, you know? I didn't know what it could turn into. I don't know, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense, but
oh, it does. I mean, and I think that I was having a conversation today where inspiration breeds creativity. And you guys did not, when you don't care, you can't care what other people think when you're trying, I guess, to do something at a high level. I mean, I understand that you do have to adhere to, you can't force people to listen or watch you, you know? So if you don't acknowledge some of the things they tell you or listen to what they want to hear more of or watch more of, well, then you can't be mad if they don't, you know, follow along. However, I think that's when you go back to that time frame where you were at, there was no impressing of anybody. And therefore everything was raw, authentic, real. And that obviously has turned to what your brand is today. I mean, I think that is
unhinged, stay real. Those are the two things we're flying the flag in 24. Stay real and we're unhinged, and that's what it is. But the thing is, you know, we have people that tune in. We've gained popularity over the years, and I think we're different. And I'm not saying we're the biggest by any means, but we've been consistent. We have fun. We don't really fall into trends too much. We always do what we think is kind of cool, and I think maybe it's on trend with our listener group for the most part, just naturally. But we try to just be as transparent as possible. And that's what I find weird is like the growth of our listenership has increased, right? And you get some people that tune in and are like, hey, I think your show's great, but you cuss too much, or I don't like that you drink beer and I can't listen with kids in the car. And I get that, but it's not for you then. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be. There's other podcasts that you can tune into, and I'd love you to listen when you can listen, but I would rather just stay who we are and stay authentic to our brand from day one and just be honest and open than all of a sudden everyone be like, well, man, once you got popularity, you changed and you sold out because so-and-so sponsored you. Like, yeah, we have sponsors, but they all know what they're getting into, you know? So it's like, what's better? Would it be better if we changed after 5 years of doing the podcast and then became uptight, welcome to the show, or if we just maintained who we were and kept having fun? but also growing the show at the same time. So
One takeaway. I'm going to have to change the show intro. 2.
why?
Well, it's something like, welcome back to the After Hours podcast.
But what I'm saying though is you need shows like that, but we're not that show. That's okay. There's people that want that type of show, but there's some people that want both shows. They'll listen to your show with their kids and stuff. They will listen to our show while they're at work.
Yeah, and the podcast, the After Hours podcast, when the guys came up with it a few years back, was simply another medium to reach guys with more time-sensitive tactics. Just not so much, hey, this is what you need to go do, but Mike, what are you doing right now? What deer are you hunting? What is your thought process over the next 7 days? And that's 100% what I think After Hours has been for the last few years. I've been asked to bring on more guests, and luckily I've got some pretty cool friends that I think have really cool stories. And we don't necessarily have an agenda with these. We're not trying to be something we're not. I think where we have the most fun and are the most comfortable is obviously in video production and storytelling with big deer, and not even big deer, but just storytelling with whatever is the actual fit for that year. Is it a big deer you followed for many years? Maybe the new property. You've watched Midwest Whitetail, but I definitely think that one of the things that resonated so much for us as friends was, I remember distinctly the first day we met. It was just like, hey man, what you see is what you get. You need help, give me a call. If you don't, peace. Yeah. And like I said, over the years, you definitely have developed into somebody that I admire for. There's very few people out there you can give a call at any point, any conversation, and you're going to get a straight up, honest, thoughtful answer. And that's something that I think with your guys' podcast that everybody appreciates, is that exactly where it's coming from. You're going to learn something. You're going to find some entertainment. And I think the next thing I would ask you is, okay, so you've done the podcast. How many episodes are you guys up to now?
Almost 680 original series episodes. Like we've experimented. We did Working Class on Deercast. There's over 100 episodes in that. I've produced podcasts for other companies along the way. So I've done an absolute just overhaul of them. But original WCB episodes, there's roughly 680, give or take some unnumbered episodes in there as well. So
680 episodes. What do you think over the course of all those, and obviously being the host and coordinating the guests and all the different things that go into not doing what we're doing right here, which is a last minute thrown together conversation.
Sometimes they're the best.
I'm having fun doing it. But
yeah,
through all of that, do you think that created any parallels to more success in the woods? Like, were there things that, as a leader of the group, having to be detail oriented, do you think that influenced the hunter you became or have become?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I don't know, I can tell you yes, but I can't tell you from what angle, but I can tell you there were some certain things that happened in the growth of the show. Because I've met a lot of amazing people because of WCB, and some of our best friends we've met because of WCB. It's been so pivotal in my life. And a couple of those guys is Ross Bigger and Austin Chandler that we met along the way. So the way I met those guys is, one, we met them at a banquet, didn't know them. They knew about us. We had some mutual friends. We got introduced. But then I actually bought a bow off Ross. He had a private bow shop and we hit it off. And I remember telling Sam on the way back from his bow shop, I'm like, hey, that's the type of people I want to be around. Motivated people who share the passion for deer hunting like I have it. Like I need to be around more people like that because it's just more enjoyable. Because I didn't go to a high school with a bunch of hunters. I was like one of the only hunters out of, high school with almost 600 kids in my class alone. So I never had that. All my friends were older that hunted, So then just being surrounded by people that were put together in their daily lives and that were also big butt killers and that were also motivated, kind of found my I was able to find, I think, like a common ground to be like inspired and like get my shit together and stuff, because I think I probably I'm a hoodlum, dude. Okay. Like I just am like, and I mean that. I don't know what I mean really when I say that, but I know what I am. I think people who, like, I'm not a bad person. I'm not saying that, but I'm like, I mean, my whole neck's tattooed.
I think the easiest way to explain what you're trying to say is that you truly do not factor a single thought into what somebody thinks about you.
That's the best way I could put it.
I think not always. Yes, that's true, but I don't think it's always has been that way. There's an art form of not giving a F word, right? And see what I did there on your show? So, and that's a statement that is like very true, because you can say you don't care, and I used to care, and it's hard to be like, nah, I don't care. You care, it bothers you, but there's an art form to not giving a, and when you truly fall into comfort in yourself and what you're doing and what your mission is, and you got people behind you, it's way easier to not care and just be yourself. So, but I guess what I'm saying is, like, having the podcast in my life gave me something to channel energy into, that kind of like structured, it helps structure and put foundation under everything else in my life, if that makes sense. Hunting is the core of the foundation.
Yeah. And I mean, community is everything within hunting. I mean, I think bow hunting is such a, loner activity for some people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think where you're going, and maybe I'm interpreting this wrong, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but when you reflect on what did the podcast give you that affected your hunting, well, it's community. And
Definitely.
you don't have what you accomplish, how you learn, the speed in which you learn, I feel like for me has always been related to the people I've been around. You have to make a very conscious choice to learn from those people. You have to be open-minded. You have to be seeking it out. There's something that Gavin and I were talking about the other day, just like how much he's fit in learning wise in the last year and a half from an editing perspective. Like, we finished up Chasing November, season 9, and what he was able to do in 2 years of, working together. That he's done that series for 2 years. I had done it, I believe, 4, before I'd made the switch to juries. He has blown away whatever I was capable of.
Yeah.
And one of the main things, he's like, man, I don't know, like, just working together, whatever. And I'm like, dude, it has nothing to do with me. You have got to be willing to be a sponge. You have got to be willing to take what you're learning and then take it to the next level. Mm-hmm. And that's where what you just talked about there resonates strongly with me, because like the greatest blessing as being a video editor has definitely been the exact same thing you said. It's brought me some of my greatest friends, where I'm really lucky. And I think you probably feel the same way with podcasting, but dude, editing hunts, editing kills, and putting together stories, it's like a masterclass into some of the biggest buck killers, their minds.
Yeah.
Most pure. You're just putting together everything, every move. And I think the lesson for, if you're listening there, is no matter what it is you're doing, could be hunting, could be work, could be family, what you're doing, if you feel the need to do it better, you also should probably take a look at who's around you to inspire you and push you to get there. Who's going to hold you accountable?
Yep.
And with a podcast like your guys's, you have such a great internal group. That's another thing. Like, I would love to have this exact same conversation with everybody. I mean, I can't stress enough that it's like who you've chosen to surround yourself with. And I think that it's probably fair to say you're pretty selective of who that group is.
Yeah, I think I have high walls, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just you're very selective where you put your energy, and so.
And it gets more selective the older you get as well, the more you learn. That is one thing you definitely want to touch on, is like, I have the best crew in hunting podcasting, hands down. Like, our crew is so good. We're brothers. We get along. Everybody's their own person. Not everybody's trying to be me. Not everybody's trying to be Doug. Not everybody's trying to be Eric. Like, you go to ATA show and you go to the bars, and then here comes a crew and everybody looks the same. And you're like, everyone's got mustaches and they're wearing hats with the rope, and then they all have the same boots on. You're like, they're just trying to be, but our crew rolls in and it's like, who are these hoodlums? Do these dudes even hunt? Like we kind of have that look because we're our own people. But we get along so well, but they're the best. And we have so much fun. And that's the one thing is like when we get hate online, that's the first thing I think now is like, we're having more fun than you. And that's why you're mad,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can attest to it. I mean, I definitely value every one of you guys. I mean, it was certainly an unexpected, friendship for sure. And I mean, it's funny, you go and talk about working class on deer casts, you and Lee, you guys, I connected you for a good deer story. And then now look, it's just, that's where
legitimately one of my best friends because of you.
Well, he's because of him. He's a great guy.
He's a good dude.
He's just good people.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that in today's internet world, we were going through reading comments today. I have to do that for the back end of the videos and we try to respond as much as possible. And it's just sometimes every now and again, you read something and you're like, how do you type that? But you just hit it on the head right there. It's coming from a place of, I guess you're just having a better time than them. And
it's a funny way to put it, right? Like it's the best way to respond, because if someone's just throwing hate at you for no reason, you're just like, man, we're just having more fun than you. It's hard to argue back. No, you're not.
Yeah. And then I don't want to for lack of a better term, call out this person, but we had somebody leave a comment on Instagram yesterday and it was pertaining to Mike had just seen moss and we were kind of teeing it up of like the video was going to come out, et cetera, et cetera. And for some reason, now I get it. I mean, I intentionally made it seem like I might have killed him or maybe not. But I also posted a day and a half before that, Mike shot 2 does, river, whatever. So I thought people would put together. They definitely did not. They thought he killed moss and this kind of like pandemonium set in. But one of the comments was along the lines of like, does Mike know how blessed he is? And so I instantly went into kind of like a defensive mode of, I got to go defend my friend here. And so switched to my account. And then I think the exact message was something along the lines of like, this is getting ridiculous. This is so easy for him. Does he know how blessed he is? And I just felt the need to share. I'm like, number one, yeah, I mean, and then that was at the end, but it's like, you get to this point where your crew, like Midwest Whitetail, for me, those guys are like family at this point. And I think that most of anybody I've ever had the chance and privilege to work with still falls under that category. But I basically broke down what he said and just tried to, and I said I was like, look, I hate messaging on digital. I hate typing things out. There's no inflection. There's no feeling. Like, understand this is coming from a place of just insight, not saying that your opinion's wrong or that you meant to be rude, but the reality is like, Mike has done X, Y, and Z to put himself into these positions. Anything that looks easy that we all know is very hard, such as killing a deer with a bow, let alone mature bucks, let alone all the things that you see people like Mike doing each year. I was like, he made conscious decisions his whole life to put him in that position. And I think you got to know Mike well enough to know it's like the guy makes it look like there's 24, hours every hour. He gets so much done in a day. There's no wasted moments. And then you fast forward to today and he's got 5 kids, owns multiple businesses, is a great husband, makes time for his faith, and he's still doing it. And I just kind of put all that into wording. And the reason why I'm sharing it is that the gentleman, I made the comment and I kind of felt bad about it. But at the same time, it's like those types of comments, if you don't respond, somebody else is reading them and they might formulate their own opinion based off of it. And I don't think that's fair. And I don't know, when people come at my guys, it makes me defensive. And it's not defensive in a rude way, but just like, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. It's not a fair statement.
Yeah.
That guy actually followed up with me on my account. I was like, hey, I come from X place. The deer hunting's not of that kind of caliber and quality. I came from a place of envy and jealousy. I'm sorry.
That's big on that person. So shout out for that.
Yeah. And I was just like, I think that, the internet and the media today is it has positivity. It has good, output.
Mm-hmm.
Also some unchecked negativity, I think, is just absolutely unnecessary.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you got into that the way you did because we just posted a couple clips from the Mark Jury episode we did, and it's all negative. Mark's talking about a 5.5-year-old deer is a 5.5-year-old deer, no matter what his headgear is. And dude, the comments on it are just insane. Like, and it's just what I was thinking today driving, and I was like thinking about all them negative comments. It's all judgment. It's like, oh, that's easy to say when you got 8 200-inch deer on your farm right now. You own style. It's all basically Mark is successful because the way he set up his life from step one. You know, if you know any history about him, and it's like, I want to be so successful in what I do that people forgot about my hard work, like they have with Mike, like they have with Mark. And because you know what, man, you got it made. You're lucky. Well, man, if you think I'm lucky and I was just stepped into all this, I must be doing a really kick-ass job.
No, that was a quote and a half right there. Seriously.
You know, but that's the thing. I've said that on several episodes of WCB. Like, at what point are you so successful that your hard work didn't matter?
Yeah. I mean, it's a fantastic question. And I mean, there's a fine line, and I find myself probably crossing it sometimes of just don't put so much investment of my own energy. Because if I invest my energy into the negativity that's spewed out there, it's taking away from my ability to help impact the team in a positive way.
It'll still suck you bad.
It will. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's like the days that I'm quote unquote having a bad one, I just try to remember what would 12-year-old me say today. And it's just like every time I think about that, it's like, shouldn't be here, don't deserve to be here, but hey, we're here, so you better not mess it up. I mean, I don't know.
You want to say you don't deserve? That's not true. You're humble.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is a imposter syndrome for sure.
Yeah, I have it daily. Oh, I have it. I'm teed up to just be shot with a crossbow from the ground from a dude in a ghillie suit because I'm a working class bow hunter and I'm a podcaster full time now. I'm on the tee.
Yeah.
You know, like, but the thing is, my entire timeline is on record every week, multiple times a week. So if you have followed along, you know, and it's there. Like if someone was like, let's see how we did it. It's literally a week by week document of me talking about it for 10 years. So it's all public. I have no chance of running for any political office for the record because of the podcast, nor would I. But that's a fun fact. And Doug and Eric said they can't either because things I've said, which is also really funny.
Well, all I know is that, you know, when I talk to, you know, my guys, and there's certain groups that I don't want to say break down and dissect, but just groups that operate as families and just cohesive units. And you watch how you can accomplish so much. Talent is great, but if you cannot work as a unit and then whatever it is you're doing, you're limited, you know, and the progression you're going to make is very limited. And, you know, guys like you, guys like Mark, guys like Mike, if I was going to point to one skill that I'm very happy I possess, it's my ability to acknowledge what I don't know and to try to just observe and absorb as much as possible. And that for me, like doing these podcasts, I mean, dude, like I know for a fact that people listen to this and are probably like, why is Midwest Whitetail even doing it? Doesn't really make any sense.
I don't think so.
Stay what you're doing. And I like the after hours, I think fits us a little bit more. But, you know, I was thinking about diving into some more of these one-on-one conversations, and it's just another avenue for me to learn. Like it's so much fun to listen.
It's a good time, flat out. I mean, that's why we love doing the pod. I mean, it's fun. I don't want to say it's easy. It's not like easy. But like once you're there in the seat, it's easy.
Yeah. So, okay, you're this many podcasts in, you've got your own property. What's next? Like if you were going to say, all right, I'm here, how do you continue the excellence? It's something that I talked about with Mark a lot of like what I have that's the most absolute highest level of respect for Mark Jury or a Mike Reed or an Owen Riegler is what I call the Tom Brady effect. Like you can get to the top in what it is you're doing, but how do you repeatedly replicate that? Have single year. I would argue you guys are at the top right now.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I don't know if that's true or not, but and it doesn't matter if it is. But I think about podcasting in the hunting space. I think I have a different perspective of it than probably other podcasters think of it as. I think other people probably think of it as like, here's our show. We need this bigger guest to make us bigger. And I have another way. I think big guests are great because they get clicky attention. But if you're getting big guests and you're putting on shitty interviews, it just exposes how bad you are to more people. So if you're not ready for it, it's a bad move. But WCB, the shift that I have been actively making, I want to be entertaining more so than I want to be tactics and tips and stuff, because I think the hunting space needs it more than ever, general entertainment and fun. But I kind of have this like overall like feel that podcasting should be like sort of like late night for like what the mainstream was. Like you ever hear like, oh man, I got to do Conan, or I was on Leno, or I was on, you know, all the iconic late night guys, and that's a thing, and everyone tunes in. They know it. They go to learn about people and be entertained and laugh and have fun, and it's just overall fun. I kind of view the hunting podcast space like that, and that's why we've kind of created that like atmosphere around WCB in our studio. And like, you know, you don't just come there to show up and do an hour episode and then leave. Like you come for an experience. Oh man, you went to the studio, you got to go to the depot and drink beers with the boys, and or you know, like I view it that way. Like big picture, I want to be like impactful and people want to do the show, because I feel like so much of podcasting now is like, I got to do another podcast. I just talk to so many people that have that attitude about it because they've been beat to death by the thousands of podcasts that are out there that aren't doing anything different. So I basically have that baseline with what we're doing going forward. And I think I can interview or conversate with anybody hunting related to the industry or not, and make it entertaining to the hunting community.
Yeah, I would absolutely say you possess an ability to extract the best version of a story or a best version of personality. And one thing that you're incredible at too is like knowing when it is time to push forward, when it's time to get back on track. And I mean, I think that that's one reason why I would encourage anybody that happens to be listening to this or watches us. Like there is so much still caked into what you guys talk about in a community-based way that offers, you know, it just offers deer hunting tactics too. I mean, I think that that's for sure. Midwest Whitetail has been known, you know, when Bill started it back in 2008 it was a platform for information for here's what I'm doing. If it happens to apply to you, go ahead and do that. We're still trying to do that with the current group today. But I definitely agree with you that it's got to be fun. And I think that that's one thing that admittedly, when we look inward at ourselves and try to figure out what more can we do and what more do our viewers want to see, a lot of what they want to see is this more behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. Now, it's tough for us to pull off because we are all multiple hours apart. You know, Mike and Rob Gavin are 2.5 hours away from me. Drake's an hour and a half. So we just logistically can't pull it off as well, but it's still something that we need to strive towards, because that is the coolest thing about the Wi-Fi capabilities of the world today, where it's like, we can still all be boys and not even be close. And that community, and there's really just no excuse not to align yourself with like-minded individuals. I mean, if you're listening to this and, you know, maybe you've heard Curt talk about the changing point, and I think you would argue that most people you talk to who have elevated at some point to a different level than all of their peers, they all talk about having the right people at the right times to push them, to help them grow, to learn from, to give them the chance. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think that I've heard you obviously on a lot of your own podcasts, but never once have you got to kind of tell that story. It's a different version, but ultimately it all ends up kind of being the same, where it's you had a dream, you had some inspiration, you probably had the right people along the way. You know, you mentioned the guys and the team you've put together, but obviously family, you know, whoever else comes to mind. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, you just kept doing it. And to become an expert in something, you just do it over and over and over. And one thing that I will end this part of the conversation with is
For the record, there's a lot of luck in there too. I want to throw that in. A lot of luck and a lot of stars have to align to make it what it is now. So just want to throw that in because you can work hard and just fall on bad luck and you're just in a time warp. But the skill, I think, is how to get out of the time warp, or not the time warp. That's a bad phrase, but you're just in the bubble and you're in an eddy and you're stagnant and going in circles. So I just wanted to add that quick before we move on.
Oh, that's very important. And so where I was going with this, I was actually talking to Joy about this the other day because she finds herself in this, I guess, career flux where she's trying to figure out what motivates her, what inspires her. And one of the things is she's like, how'd you get to where you are today? And I was like, I just did it all the time, never made excuses for not being able to practice it more. And it was my drive because I loved to do it. The dangerous thing about doing something so much that you get good at it is that by the time you get to that point where you can be like, okay, I'm decent at this, it's very hard to have that same level of just pure enjoyment. Sustain, you know what I mean? It's like it inevitably somehow becomes, in a way, it's just what you do. It's no longer from that world of creativity. And have you found yourself there? If you haven't, how would you best address it, do you think, to continue down this same, continue up this same trend of doing top tier?
All right. Full blown, admittedly, yes. I relate to what you're saying. I think it's a blessing of a curse. I've kind of like realized I have like severe adult ADHD, and I know everybody probably has it, but I think I have it like on a scale that's like becoming more unfathomable the older I get, and like almost debilitating at points. But I also feel like that's been really good for my creative process in a way. It's like I kind of like I go through this constant up and down, ebb and flow, all in this like mental state on how I want to navigate and what shows I want to do and what topics I want to do and ideas I have and where to put energy into them. And I have ideas now that I have not gotten to yet that I don't want to expose, that I know are going to be probably like the next propeller button forward for WCB and fun for our community. It's just like, when do I tackle it with my brain going all over? And I think honestly, like, my way of thinking is so sporadic that I think it's pulled me out, and like I'm able to like latch onto one creative idea and do something with a guest or do something with a topic or try this. And I think that's what we zig and zag a lot with WCB in our shows, and I think that's what keeps us fresh. And we're not going to beat you to death on 15 episodes in a row on how we peed in a scrape and blah 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 blah. Like, I just don't want that. And I don't know if that answers what you were saying, but see,
I'd answer. I mean, I think everybody probably has a different approach to that. I mean, I feel like I've hit burnout a few different times in different ways, and ultimately what pulls you out of it, and what, especially today, it's easy for me to always take a step back, is number one, it's a conscious choice to acknowledge where you're at and how lucky you are. I think that's something that's helped me just kind of get over this, like, woe is me, it's not the same, whatever, grow up. Who cares? Nobody cares. You either you either value where you're at and you're thankful for it. But for me, the biggest thing is in just my team around me. By stepping into a different role, Midwest Whitetail, than, my past 8 years of just constant video editing, production, telling those stories, etc. Getting to have, hopefully, a positive impact on my team every day. Mm-hmm. And it's taught me so much more about how to be a good leader and how to have tough conversations when they're needed, how to not just bark, but how to coach and teach and be right alongside, and it's like, I really got to see those things at full force with Mark, watch how he was able to always extract the very best versions of every person that he came into contact with. Mm-hmm. That for me is really reignited my love for the work I do. And then it's just like, I think it looks glamorous on the outside looking in of, oh, you get to hunt all the time. It's a dangerous line. We do our internships, and one of the things we talk through with the guys is like, when you mix your passion with your work, you got to be extremely careful, and you have to be able to have some self-awareness of like, most of us, I shouldn't say most of us, but at least for me, hunting was my coping, and then there was some times where it was like, all of a sudden I have no other way to handle adversity in my life.
Yeah.
And, and now here we are. And I just think that that's something very interesting, that no matter what it is you're passionate about, at some point, if you're going to get as good as you initially dreamed you would, you're probably going to have to face that at some point. And I think that's a question. I need to figure out a better way to clearly ask it. But I think that that's going to be a very interesting perspective to get from.
Yeah. A key word in there is burnout and coping. And it's like because everyone goes through it no matter what they do. I don't know. I guess with ADHD, I forget I'm burnt out after a handful of days.
Well, I think you also have, a lot of other propellers in your life. You got family, you've got the farm, you got your team, like you got a lot of people that depend on you to figure it out, and I think that that's in itself
it's horrifying.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to Bill Winke today, and one of the things he said, he's like, what propelled me and inspired me early on? He said, fear. He's like, I bet everything on this, and if I didn't do it, I was going to be selling the farm in my house. And that was that. And it was like, yeah, I mean, I think that to me, based on the people I've got to rub shoulders with, learn from, the biggest difference between the ones that are doing it and the ones that wish they were doing it was that they took a risk.
Definitely. And I honestly, a lot of that started for me, I think, in the like pivotal changes in WCB is with my dad passing. It was the biggest kick in the nuts, because you're like, it put in perspective, and it's unfortunate it took that, but it's like, if I'm going to get something out of that, like that's what my dad would want me to get. Like, nothing really matters that much in your daily life. If your dream is to chase something, everything else is like, you can go back and get that. If you didn't really want to be there in the first place, you can go back and get it if you need to, if all you need to do is support yourself or whatever. So if you have this dream that you want to start a business, it could be you're passionate about baking. It could be you're passionate about, you want a custom arrow shop, whatever it is. If you line it up right and work hard at it and you think you could do it, try it. And I didn't see that before my dad passed. I'm like, man, life is so short. Because when you're a young dude and everyone that you grew up with in your life is like, they're getting older, but they're all still alive, you kind of feel like life goes on forever in a way, because you haven't been kicked in the nuts that it doesn't. And then my dad passes away at 61, and I'm like, whoa. It was the first person in my life like that passed away that I was close to, that was just always been there since I was a little kid. And so it seems silly, but even being 30, however old I was, 29, 30, it's like, even at that age, you don't really understand if you haven't had death around you or like that kick. It feels like it goes on forever in a way, kind of. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, I mean, it feels like you always have that opportunity to maybe take the chance.
Yeah, you're like, I'll do it.
Yeah,
one day. So it was like the big pivotal, just full blown kick in the pants. So I'm like, well, I'll try this. If not, I'll go back working at another job, whatever.
Dude, I mean, I think that, I know you've heard this probably 1,000 times, but he's for sure proud looking down on what you guys are doing. I mean, because
thanks, man.
It's, I never got the chance to meet him. We weren't friends then, but every time I come in there and, it's post podcast, we got a few beers and we're like looking at, Papa Dave's buck. And it's like, you can always just tell how great of a man he was by the way you talk about him. And
yeah, for sure.
About him. So
for sure.
I think that while I don't in any way think that that's silly. I think that that's 100% authentic, real. And I think there's probably a lot of people out there that would resonate with that. And, I think that that's a great segue. Number one, super appreciative that you went down that road and talked through that. And hopefully you guys listening, what I was really aiming to accomplish with that is that there's so many people that you can draw inspiration from. We're all here for hunting content and learning and all the different things, but you can learn so much about life, apply it to hunting. And I think we would all argue that the things we've learned hunting have definitely impacted our lives in better ways than most other activities ever could. So we're all in this, and let you get back to your Friday night here, or Friday morning, or whatever the heck it is. It's only 9:50 at night. It's
early.
Yeah, it's early. Right, exactly. I know you got to go on a pretty special hunt a few days ago. You know, talking about Papa Dave, you got to go on your first hunt with Clyde. And
Yeah.
walk us through now, obviously, and I don't talk about whatever you want, but were there any takeaways, you know, when you guys pulled up to the gate, you know, was there any feelings that just kind of came invoking out, or was it just like another day, the boys getting into it?
No, you know, I don't want to say that I'm not sentimental, because I definitely can be, right? Like I am.
You can let people know. It's okay.
But like I just kind of, it's like, hey, we're going, dude. You know, like it wasn't like, oh my God, my boy, he's 3, and we're going. Like it's to a point that stuff's. I loved it. Right, it was so fun, and I brought all the snacks, and he didn't give a shit about anything but eating Oreos off the top of the cooler in the blind. You know, like it was funny. They were ready to go pretty quick, and I just took them. You know, it's his first hunt's hilarious. And I always look at him like, you're my dude, aren't you? He's like, I'm your dude. You know, he's just like a gnarly, he looks like a little BMX kid. He's like a miniature version of me, you know, and I just look at him, I'm like, God, I'm going to have my hands full, dude. But, you know, it was fun. I'm glad he did it. He can say he went on his first hunt when he was 3. We saw a couple yearlings. He's went twice now, a few days apart. We didn't see any deer the first time. We did see deer the second time. And, you know, I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they're just as loud as you could be, and it's pretty funny, you know. So it's fun, but I don't know how much more I'm going to take them out this year, because I don't want them to be like, Dad, you know. So I'm trickling it in a little bit here and there when it's applicable, but I mean, it was cool. I'm sure, you know, if my dad were to see that, he'd be so stoked, 'cause it's like 3rd generation type thing and whatever. But yeah, it wasn't like this sappy thing. I'm just like, I laughed more than I, you know, because I was like looking at him. He's just like munching Oreos with his mouth open. I'm just like, it's as loud as you could be. This is hilarious, you know? So that's what it was. I mean, that'll probably be our thing, though. I'll probably just bring Oreos every time we go hunt until he's like 30. And he's like, what the hell are we still bringing Oreos to the hunts? You know, but I don't know. It was cool. It was definitely cool.
I love it. Well, we have this cold front coming. You have some big deer to chase.
Yes, hopefully.
Obviously, we talked about on the front end, maybe not everybody is going to take this window, because then maybe you're going to be saving vacations, or
if you don't mind, can I get into that vacation thing a little bit?
You can get in whatever you want, man.
Because we talked about a little bit earlier, and I had this conversation with Mark, you know, with like different stuff like DeerCast and different mapping tools, whatever everybody uses, you know, their preference. Like the rutcation thing you always hear, I feel like that's slowly going to trickle away, because you might take your rutcation and it's November, but it's 75 degrees and sunny and hot every day. I mean, they're still going to rut, but we've all been there. We've all had rutcations like that where the weather didn't cooperate for the flat 5 days, you know, Monday through Friday that you had slotted from work. And I think it's going to be changing, because everybody I'm talking to, like, if you got a PTO day to put in and you're not going to put in for a whole rutcation, I'd be putting in a couple days for this cold front. And then it's, to me, a cold front like this mid-October, if you're on a particular deer, you have a better opportunity to kill that deer with a bow than you do November 5th when it's 75 degrees and you just took that week and got shitty weather and whatever. So I think the rutcation thing for some guys is going to start trickling out to just premium hunt days where they can trickle them in that month period of, it could be October 10th to November 10th, you know?
No, I was on a discussion, and we were talking about, I was asked, what are the best days to hunt? And I said, whatever your farm tells you. It has nothing to do with the time of year, in my opinion. I mean, like, I've got a pretty healthy, I guess, example list of like certain properties being good early. Some are good the middle, post-harvest. Some are affected by crop rotation. Some do really good pre-rut, rut, where the rest of the year it's pretty much you're not in the game. I think there's a lot of different things that, when somebody answers that question for themselves, what's the best time for me? That's the beauty of today's technology. That's the beauty of hunting a property multiple years in a row, where you start to put together different clues that, like, it's not because somebody else is going to do a certain thing at a certain time that's when I think I should go hunting. And so I think you bring up a fantastic point of there's so much information out there that you can find that should apply to you. That this front, regardless, like you just hit on, if you are in the game on a deer, if he hasn't daylighted in a while, do not wait for the photo to happen to come by on Sunday or Monday. Be like, oh, fun, go get him, because you probably missed him.
So many people get hung up on that, man. I was talking to my buddy Todd today, and he's hunting a big deer. We're all hunting, deer we want to shoot, right? And I'm like, man, I've had no trail cam pictures, but I'm going to a spot in a terrain feature that I know when it's good, it can be as good as it gets in that spot. If conditions are right, the wind's right, and I'm there. And that's what I'm doing. And I don't need a trail cam picture in that area to be like, there he is, the big 9. I'll be there tomorrow, and he'll be there at 4:30 p.m. and I'm going to shoot him. Like, I'm going to go there, and hopefully he just rolls through. Like, I'm, capitalizing on perfect conditions for the time of year. I'm going to be in what I think is the best spot to put me in the game. And I might not be in the game at all during that cold front. But
what is the spot, if you don't mind breaking it down? You said a terrain feature. What is it?
Yeah. So this particular one, I hunt out of a saddle, and I found it mobile hunting, which I do a lot. And it's a farm I've hunted for a handful of years, but like somehow, you ever like hunt a spot and that just takes you a little bit, and you look at it, you're like, why have I never set up here? Like, but I just kind of was looking, I overlooked it for other things. But what it is, basically, it's a stretch of timber that's maybe, what's funny about this spot? I actually set up in it while I was on the phone with you one day. I was walking through last season, and I was like, oh, do you remember that? You probably don't, but I was on the phone with you trying to shoot a deer. But anyway, it's like a hillside. This year it's corn on the south, beans on the north. The south is the high spot, but down in the bottom, there's a creek that kind of like cuts hard in an S, and it creates this flat spot off the bottom of the creek before the hill that I'm sitting on starts. So there's like a 25-yard flat in the hill starts, and I'm up on a tree that overlooks this path. And what I did, I went in and basically hinge cut a handful of trees. And I did that last year, not thinking about it. And they're all green up around it. So I have like this like cover, and I'm just above them. And with the hill, I don't know if that makes sense, but the angle of it, it's like 22 yards, and you can just see the path right there that they're using. So they're getting pushed to that flat spot at the base of the hill. So it's like a pinch point but it doesn't really look like a pinch point from an aerial. So when I got down in it, I'm like, that's a good spot. So that's where I'm at, and that's where I'm going to sit, because I know there's food all around it. There's potential bedding close, and there's 2 different food sources up and down, and acorns in the middle. So
probably not a spot you go in often, because it sounds like it's going to be one of those. I may be wrong, but when I hear that, it's like great spot to take a shot. How are you going to get out?
Yeah, so that's the tough thing about it. In the morning, there's still so much standing corn, and I don't know if the corn's out yet on that particular lease. If the corn's in, I can go in the morning and pull off a little more. If the corn's out, probably what I'll do is, honestly, and some people might laugh at this, but I've done it and it works. I will drive my truck out into the field and do a U-turn and then go park it and then dip in as fast as I can. But yeah, getting out at night with the crop in, not that big a deal, I don't think. The crop's out, it gets a little tougher. So it just depends. But you're right. Like sometimes I'll go in and blow deer out of a field. The opportunity of killing the deer outweighs me spooking does in the field, or if my target buck's on the other side of the field and I bump them, I'm not necessarily always overly worried about that stuff unless it's like, of course, if I'm right on top of them, it's different, but very situational. But for me, my tactic is everything is there for the recipe. He just has to be there.
Yeah. And I mean, take the shot. And I mean, if it goes wrong, you're not going to bump him out of the county. I mean,
no, but what's nice about it, it's where I'm at. It's like a strip of timber. And so they're working through there. And what's nice is I dip out one direction and then I'm up into the open and can skirt out. I don't have to like walk through 200 yards of timber. Because my theory is it's like there's a bulb west of me that I think a lot of the deer bed in is in this cut because they can see down to the field at the wind on a north wind, especially. And then there's like a low laying area in the bottom between two other fields. It's like swampy, like wetland type area. And I think the deer bed on those two sections and use that strip I'm in to navigate between the two. So it's not bulletproof, but I can get away with more than I would have if it wasn't set up that way.
Gotcha. Well, best of luck on it.
Hope that makes sense. The way I like described it, it makes sense in my head when I explain it.
Well, if you feel generous, you can just drop a pin. I can pull up screen grab. I'll put it there.
No.
Coordinates, whatever people, hey, in the aid of education, you should. Don't you want to start filming hunts? That's the
drone shot. No, you guys are, I mean, I get it, man. And, but the thing is, it's like, it is educational, but if I'm doing that, I'm pulling off some random farm in a state that I don't even hunt with no name on it and be like, this is an example of what's those like those true crime shows where it's like, this is a reenactment. Just put one of those like disclaimers at the bottom, not actual drone footage. This is a reenactment.
Yeah. We talked about with this deer I'm hunting. Yeah. Not any drone footage of that spot. I don't think it'd be a smart idea for our purposes of actually trying to get him killed. But
yeah. Which a lot of people out there trying to ruin a good thing for you, and that's unfortunate. But
well, I can't say anything because, man, I remember so distinctly I'd watched Bill, Jared Mills, and I would literally go and try and find those spots.
It's kind of fun. Like it's
I mean, you just try to work backwards. And what town was that in? What gas station did they stop? Okay, and back then I don't think people were too worried about north to south. Like one thing we try to consciously do now: never fly south to north or north to south. If you fly east to west, west to east, everything shifted a little bit, so it doesn't perfectly line up on a map the exact same.
Oh, interesting.
You can still illustrate the points, but you got to be on your P's and Q's to probably identify as well. Now, the funny thing is 99% of the time, the people who quote unquote, you don't own the deer. It's not what I'm getting at here, but it's also still like finding a fine balance of if there's information you're figuring out and patterns you're identifying, and then you go and talk about it, somebody else can key in on that information. And, ultimately you're trying to shoot the deer. You gotta be smart and find the line. It's not coming from a place like owning the deer. But yeah, I mean, we try to.
I've had neighbors that are great dudes and they're not malicious, but like, hey man, I heard you mention that box blind over there on that food plot. Is that over there? I'm like, oh, well, interesting you're listening, but that's a totally different area, dude, unrelated. So it's like, I can talk about a spot and people can make that spot in whatever spot they want that spot to be and just be like, oh man, Kurt's
that's Kentucky.
Got him tied up over there.
Kentucky.
Kentucky. Yeah, it's Kentucky over bait. Let's do it.
Yep. Well, I will also be making a move on Sunday, Monday. I think Sunday we're going to try that 6x5 deer. They just cut the corn there. And the main reason I'm going to sit out Sunday and Monday morning for the big deer is because the wind speeds for me, they're pretty high. It's like 20 mile an hour. And the times we've sat, those deer are already on a different level of just alert.
So do you think Sunday morning, so you're 3 hours ish west of us, give or take 30, 45 minutes. I had to look, but the front's coming Sunday night into Monday morning, right?
But for us, based on what I can tell, the front really starts to roll through Saturday in through Sunday. Like the wind shift occurs going from Saturday night into Sunday morning. Pressure starts to rise, and it's windy all day, which I think is going to set up really well for a lot of people. If I knew where this buck was bedded 100%, I just don't. I think he's there sometimes. It's very rare.
Yeah.
I would try to utilize that to get in tight to his bedroom because that 20-mile-an-hour wind's going to be awesome. But
it's northwest at 20 for us, but it goes from a low of 47 to a low of 40, but a high of 85 on Saturday to a high of 68 on Sunday. But then from Sunday to Monday, we have a low of 37 to a high of 60.
Oh yeah.
So Sunday afternoon is going to be stellar.
Absolutely. And that's where, so I'm going to be in a tree Sunday, but we're going to go to a spot. So how Sunday night's setup is the bedding is to the north. We have to come directly from the south, and we're going to do a hanging hunt with those high winds because I know if the buck's in there, he'll be to my north on that deer. And I just want to give myself 3 good chances. It's not that I am all in on the big deer, though he is the deer of a lifetime. This other deer we're hunting is no slouch, and it would mean a lot to me to be able to kill a deer on that property. They just cut the corn. I was really hoping to have timed up when the combine was in there to hang the stands. However, we just had a little bit of miscommunication where we were told, hey, we're done, when really I was hoping to get the, hey, I'm on my way text, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which,
smart tactic, though.
Well, yeah, I think it could have been productive. And frankly, I think these first 2-3 days are probably going to be really good with the most fresh corn on the ground, if there's any left over. But
there's always some left over.
South winds, so I'm just like, whatever. But with the north, so going to Sunday night, I'm going to hang on the west edge of the timber and just more or less, I don't think we're going to be able to get straight up in the game. But we'll be enough that maybe with the rise in pressure, maybe he'll be feeling his oats, grunt tube comes into play, we can calm down. It's Monday morning, I've got a set that I'm hoping, and that's the other thing of I've thought about getting pretty aggressive on Sunday night just to be able to go hunt that same stand Monday morning.
I think it's a good play because you save yourself a lot of headache that way. Man, I don't know. I think as long as you're close to the game, the deer are going to be moving, right? Like temperature is the big thing this type of year that affects what they're doing. As long as it makes sense, I feel like I'm going to be in the game from what I know, but I have so much corn still in. And even though you always hear about guys oh man, the corn's in seed, I think big bucks spend more time in standing corn than we even give them credit for.
I know it would be really interesting with those different drone surveys to see what they said. If guys that run those, I don't know, it just would be an interesting thing. This is actually the scrape that I think if we'll kill him, it'll be on. It's not going to focus, but let me hide my face.
It's the perfect. Oh, there you go.
So this is directly off the north end of that cornfield. And there's a mock scrape we made. The 6x5 has been on there. All the bucks have been on it. But main reason I'm going to hunt is because the wind speed will benefit me there. Monday, though, and this is where, and I'll wrap it up here, but you made the comment earlier of not wanting to go because if he gets up 15 minutes too late, you risk the bumping him out on the way out. That's kind of where this big deer is on that property that you and I looked at together. Mm-hmm. He daylighted, so that last string of good weather we had 4 or 5 days ago wasn't a major front, but it was nice. It was a good change. Yeah. North winds after a bunch of souths. The windy day when the front came in wasn't there. The next day, northwest winds. It was nice. It was consistent, 8 to 12. But it still wasn't good enough. The pressure wasn't really doing what it needed to. There wasn't enough change. I didn't feel like he was 15 minutes after legal. And just based on what I've seen just on the property in general is that the wind with where they're at, they're going to just stay bedded until when it dies off. And the worst thing I feel like we could do is go in Sunday, wind dies off right at dark. He gets up. We try to get out. We spook him. I really believe, like, if you look at the Loch Ness hunt for Owen last year, I believe it was October 5th or 6th, whichever one. It was the windy day, the front. Loch Ness daylighted on the food plot, but it was super late, like right at last light. And then Owen had made an observation of like, he was just probably bedded deeper inside of there to get out of the wind. And that's deer on this draw that I think if we're going to kill it, he needs to be in this draw if we're going to kill him.
Yeah.
I think he's every day in there.
What's the wind speed on Sunday or on Sunday all day?
Sunday, I think it was like
11.
12. You know, it's consistent enough. And the stand that we've hung for him and that we've hunted a few times, it's not going to work for that northwest wind. Now, this sounds crazy, and I want to send you the map right now so you can observe what it is I'm talking about. But there is a map from last year. It's very obvious to see the corn, and you can see what I'm talking about. There's a trail that runs from this south ditch that's going to run directly to the north where all those stand pins, camera pins are.
Mm-hmm.
You see where it says 930 feet?
Yep.
You see right to the left, there's like that trail that's so distinct that goes through the corn from north to south.
Yep.
They run the ridge of that hill, and it's beans this year. They will walk out of that south ditch and literally for like 10 yards go into the field, fine. The second they get out in the open, they sprint across to where that point is.
Mm.
They do not deviate from that point and that trail at all. But the northwest wind, obviously where that stands at, is horrible for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they know the only danger is going to come from that area. That's where the only cover a predator could be hiding. So what I'm going to do, Curt, is I'm going to get on the ground and go 15 yards to the east of that trail because I have not seen a single deer one time, buck, doe, fawn, not go on that trail that's that distinct. And that gives me 2 years of belief that they've done the same thing. They just ride that topography line on the hill. It gets from cover to cover. And I personally just think that if we blow our wind out into the field to the east of them, I think we're going to be fine. Can we hide two guys? I don't know.
What are you hiding in?
It's just like it's like brommy CRP brush. I mean, it's enough that I think we can get there. It's just a matter of, can we break up our silhouette enough? You know, Perry and I were talking. He's like, do you try a blind? You know, do we try a decoy? I'm like, I don't want to do, frankly, anything because I think if we put a decoy in the field, or excuse me, I was talking to Caleb about the decoy. He's got that heads up decoy you can put on your bow. I'm like, I really don't want to give them any indicator that we're there. You know, like if we do the decoy, he's just going to circle downwind of us.
It's going to just throw a hole. It'll just throw a stick in their program. I like the idea. Is there any like, you know, how
a duck blind is what I've thought about. Like if I can carry out some sort of, I would even venture to say it'd be okay probably to drive in there. They're going to be in the draw. There's been combines going through there, grain carts for sure. I've thought about literally driving out there with duck blind, like a just layout blind, putting that in the grass. That'll break me up enough. I mean, obviously we got camouflage, but I don't want to have a profile where I'm reliant on sitting or standing. I don't think that's, yeah. And
I did something similar to this 3 years ago and almost pulled it off. So can I, if you don't mind, I'm going to run through the story real quick because I think it's very similar to what you're going to do. I hunted a property that had a lot of CRP, and this big deer I was hunting that I ended up finding dead in shed season. I think Mark cursed it with EHD because he's like, oh, hopefully you get him for EHD does. And then EHD got him, I think. So thanks, Mark. But I could see from the back end of this property, I could see this field, this open field that he'd come out of this draw that I couldn't get in, and he'd hit the field. And this is like October 11th or 12th of 21. My buddy has one of those blinds that's like a mirror.
oh, you talking about the ghost blinds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always laughed at those, and still admittedly kind of do. But I feel like if you have them set up right, they're cool, you know? So I strap this thing to the back of my e-bike and roll in and get in this CRP on the very north end of this thing. And I had one bush, one like honeysuckle bush, or whatever it was. And I tucked the wind. It was a straight west wind. So I'm waiting for this deer to walk out of this draw from my west and hit this field. And hopefully he was going to do something where I could get a shot, whatever. And I got this bush upwind of me for cover because I know he's going to come out of that draw. And I thought if he comes in to me, he was going to go down to my east downwind. So I was set up to shoot before he got downwind of me. So I'm set up in this blind, and there was enough grass in it, like CRP, that I tucked it in. I was 10 yards off the edge of it. So I wasn't really worried about shine. The sun was behind me, whatever. Anyway, this buck comes out in the field. I can hear him grunting and snort wheezing at other bucks in this cut cornfield. So I'm like, well, hell. He looks, and I'm like, oh, shit. He chills out, goes back doing his thing, turns, beelines to me, never cuts downwind, stays upwind where that bush is, can never shoot him. He's at 12 yards, and I was trapped. What I'm saying is, if you can get a hold of one of those, that might be your ticket. Because if it worked on that deer, I just had bad luck that he didn't do what I thought he was going to do. But I should have killed him.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you said that because me and another buddy were talking about those because it is those things do set up really well from the standpoint of like that allows you to get a chair. You know, I've never really spent a lot of time shooting out of duck ground blinds. You know,
I wouldn't like laying down.
That would be it's such a weird angle. And also the amount, what I hate the most about the idea of that is how much we would have to trim. I hate trimming vegetation on the hunt. I mean, that puts out a smell. It just changes a lot of things. Now, I don't know. I mean, it seems just ridiculous. And the reality is like you would probably say, well, just wait for a better wind. But I got to do what he's doing. And what he tells me is that's when he comes through there. And I got to hope that Advent, because it's like the last few days, south winds, haven't seen him, which is great. I think that's awesome. I think that gives me some, just belief that for whatever reason on these switches from south to northwest, I'm part of his path.
It's the do factor that Mark Drury talks about.
Yeah. I mean, I feel bad for the viewers watching for me. Like if they're watching on the chase, they are not seeing anything. And we see a doe and a fawn. I've had the police calling me already. Like it's an interesting setup. It's not everybody gets mad because they're like, oh, this isn't relatable. There's 50 deer. And then they get mad at you because there's no deer. And it's like, hey, look, I don't know what you want from me.
It's just what it is.
He is, and at this point, this is my last shot. It's our last, this window is what I would believe. We need to kill him in the next few days, or we are now at the mercy of the randomness of the pre-rut and rut, which who knows what could come through there. You know what I mean? I'm just really happy to be in the game on deer like this. I think it's awesome. And incredible opportunity. I really hope we can kill him so we can get into a little bit more of the stupidity of the spot and the story of where we're hunting him, because it's different. It's not.
See, I know a lot of the details, and I think it's fun. I think it makes a story like what you said. It's like you then get mad for seeing a ton of deer than seeing no deer. But if you go in there and get one of those blinds and the idea seems ridiculous, but you've done the homework, and if it all just comes together and you can pull it off, it makes it way cooler. And it's one of those things. Who can be mad at you? Because how many people, one, put the work in to put themselves in that situation? But I know people that I'm like, man, you need to go hang a tree, stand in that tree because that deer is doing that. You can go kill that deer. And you tell them that, and they're like, yeah. Well, it's not that they don't want to kill it. They're just too lazy and they're not ambitious, or maybe it's not a priority for them to be ambitious to go in and set up, whether it's set up in the dark or set up now so you can go in there. It's just too much work. And that's the reality for a lot of people, but you're willing to do it. So that's what's cool about it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think regardless, it's a window, as you said in the very beginning, of opportunity. I definitely think worth getting the tree on one of those days. I mean, you hear all the time this October lull thing, and I don't think it's real. I think that there's enough out there to say it's not real. Now, granted, your property might just not set up well for this time frame. Totally.
That's what I think.
And there are people out there for sure in that boat. If you feel like that's you, don't burn it then. Save your day for what historically has told you is a much better opportunistic time for you to be successful.
Yeah.
But I'm going to let you end this one with how you would end the Working Class Bow Hunter podcast. because it's probably my favorite tagline. There's a bunch of badass merch with it. So,
Yeah. Go shoot your bow. We love you. Thanks for tuning in.
thanks, guys. Good luck out there. We will catch you this Monday. If you haven't seen it, we're going to have Joe and Owen's successful archery hunt that they had October 2nd, first bow kill of the year. And hopefully by the time you guys are watching that, we got another list of good hunts come down the pipe. So appreciate you listening. Good luck out there. We'll see you on the next one.